Did God create the world in 6 actual days? Or are the 6 days mentioned in the first pages of the Bible just symbolic? Ooh, are you ready? Are you ready for some controversial theology? Have you heard this debate before? Even if you're brand new to reading the Bible, on the very first page, God shows up and he creates the heavens and the earth. And it says on day 1, he created this, and then on day 2, he created this, 3, 4, 5, on 6, the crown of his creation, he creates Adam and he creates Eve, and then he rests on the 7th day. And there it is, just kind of blunt and black and white on page 1 of the Bible. But then, as we start to study geology and astronomy and all the other sciences, we end up with theories that are very distinct from that. So many Christians, I'm not sure if you've wrestled with this, I've had to wrestle with this. How do we interpret that? Are these 6 actual days where God made everything that we see in the heavens and on the earth, or is there some sort of symbolism here? Now, before I give you my understanding of the Bible, I just want to say this has been a really debated thing, even within people who follow Jesus and love the Bible. This isn't the only possible interpretation that you'll hear, but I want to share how I see the scriptures and why I see the scriptures in the way that I do. Here goes. I do think the days mentioned in Genesis 1 are literal 24-hour days. Now, I know that sometimes we use the phrase day in more general symbolic ways. Like back in my day, I'm not referring to a 24-hour period. I'm referring to a bigger stretch of time. So we can use the phrase that way, but I think in this context, it refers to a 24-hour period, and here's why. Because again and again and again on the first page of the Bible, it says, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. A few verses later, there was evening and there was morning the second day. There was evening and there was morning the third day. An evening and a morning kind of adds up to a regular day, not a symbolic stretch of time. So God seems to be on repeat saying to us that it was an evening and a morning, what we understand as a day, as an actual day. I think that's argument number 1 to support this literal 6-day creation. Argument number 2. Many years later, when God was leading the children of Israel out of slavery under the leadership of Moses, he gave them the 10 Commandments. You can read about this in the middle of the book of Exodus. And when God gets to the commandment about the Sabbath day, which was Saturday, he wanted his people to not work, but to rest because they weren't slaves anymore. Part of his rationale was this: for 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day you should rest. Here's the reason why. For in 6 days God created the world, but on the 7th day he rested. So God was telling people, literally, I want you to work for those 6 first days of the week, but on the 7th day, he didn't say, I want you to work for one general expanse of time, and then a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth, and then like rest for some whatever stretch of time that's like the Sabbath. No, day meant day. He fit it into the normal context of the week as we understand today. And then he connected that to the very first page of the Bible. So my understanding is that if we let Scripture interpret Scripture, we end up with a really kind of simple, basic, right here on the page, evening, morning, backed up by the 10 Commandments rhythm, that day actually means day. Now, you might push back and say, well, Pastor Mike, how do you explain this and how do you explain that? And that's a conversation for another day. That's a much deeper discussion that I couldn't tackle in just a couple minutes. But if you ask me, what do you think is the most faithful biblical interpretation of day? I would say basically a day, an evening and a morning, 7 of them in a standard week. Our powerful, amazing, wise, and capable God created the world, me and you, in that span. And we're so grateful that he did. May he give us humility as we debate and discuss questions like this. And most importantly, may he give us a focus, not on just theories and interpretations, but on the sovereign, powerful, amazing God who created this world and gave us life. Hey, thanks for listening to Taboo Questions with me, Pastor Mike Novotny. You can find even more questions on timeofgrace.org/taboo questions and in my book entitled Taboo, Topics Christians Should Be Talking About But Don't. Just look for the link in the episode notes.